All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Alex Palting, and I'm here with the Hustling Creative. So welcome to State of the Art. Today, we thought that we would just talk industry shop in just a really casual and heartfelt manner. Thank you so much for joining us. So I have asked some of my friends to be here. The reason that we started this little meeting today is because a few of us met up a few weeks ago. About 101 of us artists met up for a fundraiser called Artists Feeding America, and we came from 4 continents, and we raised the money for 60,000 meals for Feeding America, and we're joined by 5,000 audience members. And I think it just really ignited how important it is to connect and to keep doing so and keep reaching out, and especially to do so as artists across different genres. So I just brought a bunch of my friends from different walks of life and different places around the country, and different artistic meetings to come share a drink and share a conversation. So yeah, if you are looking for a reprieve like me from all of the industry talk that has been going on, just because it's just too stressful, then we are hopefully that for you. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring our friends on. Hello. Hi, guys. Oh,
Hi.
Hi.
One person. Hi. So if we could just go around the horn, I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves, say who you are, where you're from, what you do that's not a virus, and also what you're drinking, because I hope you have a beverage.
All right, I'll start. I'm Rick Barr in Columbus, Ohio. I'm a musician and voiceover actor. The music part of my career has been shelved for now. There's no venues that I can play at. So I'm just relegated to the booth, doing voiceover work, audiobooks. Those are the basics. The most important thing, though, this is Chateau Saint Michel, I believe. It's a Riesling. It's very light.
Ooh.
Very nice. Barely gotten started.
That's
It won't
Riesling.
take much to make me feel quite good.
That's what's important.
Yes.
I'm Jacqueline Holloway. I am a fight director and intimacy choreographer. I'm also a stage combat instructor. I teach at Columbia University as well as a bunch of other places, and I have my own school, Arte Violenta, with my partner. I had a lot of work scheduled for this time that has all been canceled. So finding ways to keep busy and sane. I've been doing a morning workout with Alex every morning at 9 a.m., kicking Coronas.
Coronas, yep.
And you know what? I don't know what I'm drinking. I'm drinking something that's white and pretty okay that my fiance is keeping at this level, which is delightful. Shout out to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Green. I am an actress, a singer, and I'm currently a master's student. I'm studying creative writing in the UK, but right now I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia. So everything's online, and I specialize in fiction and oral history, and my dissertation was supposed to be an oral history book that I've been working on over the past few years. But I don't know if I'll have to change that or not, because it is completely dependent on my ability to be able to travel and to interview people and to enter crowded spaces where there's a lot of tourism going on. So we'll see where that goes. And I'm drinking some tea. It has a bunch of spices and honey and lemon juice in it. Have like a bunch of herbal tea bags in here because my allergies have been killing me, and this generally helps clear things up. So. And it's a London cup to remind me of school, where I'm currently not at. So.
Still on, right? Yeah, I just want to make sure that
I can.
Yeah, you're a little faint, Alex.
Okay, a little faint. How's this better?
That's great.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to just keep it right in my mouth. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Abdullayev. I kind of wear a lot of different hats. I am a pianist by trade. I also do a lot of theater work, theater conducting. I teach at University of Delaware, at Westchester University, and I teach remotely at Boston University. Most of my work at this time has kind of either been re-qualified so far as my teaching responsibilities are concerned. Those have all been moved online. All of my gig work is indefinitely suspended pending some sort of miracle cure. And until such a time, I'm basically just kind of making ends meet by teaching. So yeah. And I mean, I also do like a bunch of other sort of creative things on the side, but like if that comes up, that's going to come up on its own. So like we don't have to necessarily mention all of that. So that's me. Oh, what I'm drinking is a Provare Cabernet Sauvignon, which I apparently can order through the mail now, which is a thing in Maryland, which is where I live. So apparently in the wonderful state of Maryland, you can't do a lot of things. Like you can't get weed, but you can definitely get wine sent to you by FedEx. So, cheers to all of you.
Cheers.
All right.
Cheers to FedEx.
Yes,
I know, right?
I'm Jessica Lefko. Alex, come and see us in the district. I'm in Washington, D.C., so you can definitely pick up your weed of choice. I am not currently having any of that because I'm paranoid enough. I am drinking water from my Montgomery College Raptors water bottle. I'm a teacher at Montgomery College Rockville. I teach acting currently online. Because, as everyone else has mentioned, all the other work has gone away. I'm a director. I'm a performer. And right now, I'm a reader of every damn book I can get my hands on because why not make hay when it rains? Yeah, that's me.
Amazing. What are you reading right now?
I just finished All the Light We Cannot See, which is a really cool book. Oh, okay. Yeah, got it.
Okay, gotta read that.
Yeah, there we go. I just finished All the Light We Cannot See. It's coming from somebody.
I hear it.
That's all right. Your video probably isn't muted. Sounds like you found it. The video on the on Facebook or YouTube or wherever.
Yeah, I'm not queued up there, so that wouldn't be me.
Oh, that's weird. Well, wasn't me.
It's gone now.
Take it as a fluke because it's gone.
Okay, super.
Yeah. All right. Also, I totally forgot to say this. We did this as a group before we all got on, but it might be helpful in case anyone wants to comment at us just to share our pronouns really quickly. So my name is Alex Palting, she, her, hers. I'm typically an actor in New York City. Right now I'm home in Columbia, Maryland. And what else? Oh, and I'm drinking a Guinness. So yeah. Anyone else want to go around the horn?
Her, hers, Jessica.
She, her, hers, Jacqueline.
She, her, hers, Lindsay.
He, him, his, Rick.
He, him, his, Alex.
Great. And I guess let's just start with a toast. Thank you all for being here. And here's to all of you watching. Here's to everyone who's doing the best they can to be the best they can right now. Good on you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so I mean, I had a few questions starting out, but I mean, we can really just see how everything goes. I don't want this to be too structured. I think that, all of you are intelligent and make amazing conversations, so I probably won't do much once it starts rolling. But I guess I just want to start with like the most basic, but maybe the most difficult question, which is, how are you?
Sorry.
I think it's kind of kind of fluctuating a lot between being at peace and then just experiencing this ongoing strange wave of grief. And I think it's just the idea of every single night watching the news, which I know I should not be doing all the time, but there it is. There's this constant death, and it's just so much that I'm not used to this. So it's a lot to process. And then it's also, I think, a lot of just fear and anxiety about what's happening in the world and what's happening to people in small businesses and people who are struggling. And it's a lot on the brain at once. So I think there's moments when I feel very optimistic and hopeful, but there's other times when I just have to acknowledge the fact that I'm feeling a little bit apprehensive.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm feeling very similar. It's a lot of optimism, we're going to get through this and we're going to get through this together and it's going to be amazing and we'll create amazing things. But then I've got CNN on blast all day long and there's the numbers and, my mother is very immunocompromised. So that's weighing very heavily on me. And we've got a 7-year-old and my 8-year-old nephew with us. So homeschooling on top of all that has just been, I mean, I don't know where everybody is finding all this time to binge Netflix. I wish. I have to say lie to my family. I'm on a meeting. Don't bother me for an hour just to get some quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess the grass is greener for everybody's whose grass isn't very green right now. But it's, we're making it through.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'm.
Um,
Oh,
go ahead.
please.
No, go for it.
I find that I have grown children, and I haven't felt this kind of. It's not so much that I'm paralyzed as that I am on the balls of my feet a lot in this crisis, ready to move one way or another. So I'm not particularly active. I haven't felt this way since my kids were little, and they break a bone, or they need stitches, or something's going on. I feel that I feel myself stuffing my own emotional responses to sort of stay on the balls of my feet for what's coming. I'm living currently with a husband whose lungs aren't great. One of my adult children has moved back when New York started getting a little crazy. He came down with his partner and their cats. So my house is full. I have 2 kids I don't get to see. So once a week I make them look at me over the internet because I just need reassurance. And my aged parents are a couple miles away. So there's just a lot of moving pieces. And I'm aware that at some point I will have to deal with my emotions because right now, without doing it consciously, I'm aware of that kind of stuffing it back. I'm stuffing it back. That's where I'm at mostly.
I think for my part, I'm usually very cerebral, and I don't exactly stuff things back. It just I kind of let things flow. Man, when this thing hit, as soon as they closed all the venues in Ohio, and we knew that our gigs, our shows were gone, boy, I just felt it more than I have most things recently. This was just severe. It was an extreme. It was totally out of our hands. I'm a little bit lucky in that, like you, Jessica, my kids are grown. They're 25 and 24. They have careers. So yeah, I don't get to see them, but they're doing okay. I don't know if it would be better or worse to have them with us 24 hours a day. I know that could be a struggle too. So like, the grass is greener wherever you are. But yeah, just trying to deal with the loss of a career and knowing that it's going to be a while. This was never going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, and one of my sons is in the industry too. He's lost everything. He's a rigger for the big venues, so that's gone for the next year and a half minimum.
Right. And all of us are going to be dealing with that kind of loss for a different amount of time, depending on what we do. But it's affected all of us just a lot.
Yeah.
So from an emotional standpoint, I don't know, I'm not sure if you guys could tell from the last name, but I am from Russia. He was born in Soviet Union in 1980. So as I'm sure you can imagine, I have seen some stuff. One of the things that I had to live through was Chernobyl. And it was kind of a very similar instance where they basically told us to just everybody go back to your homes. Everything is going to be fine. You don't have to worry about a thing. Your government is in control. In fact, nobody knew what the hell what anyone was doing. And so also there was the 2001 anthrax scare, which I feel like I've used up all of my ability to care during. So personally, I'm fine in that respect, but my concern mostly rests with other people. I live with my wife and 4 cats, which is kind of an insane number of cats to have, but or an amazing number of cats. It really doesn't. I mean, it kind of depends on your perspective. And my mom lives not too far away from where Jessica is situated in Rockville, Maryland, and so my concern is primarily with them. So, the other day, my mom had a bit of an instance where she's like, "I have to go to the hospital," because she's kind of in her 60s, and so I'm like, "Oh, I mean, normally this would be fine, but now this is a problem," and so. Most of my concern sort of resides with the people in my life. For my part, I'm fine. I have a pretty stable career as a college professor. That part is fine. I'm not hurting for money. It would have been fine to have the extra income from my performance gigs. And I do definitely enjoy performing, but that's not the main issue. The main issue that keeps coming up with me is sort of the ramifications of this on a long-term scale. Sort of how will this affect the livelihood of my colleagues? How will this affect the livelihood of my peers? How will this affect the future generations of students that are coming up through the ranks to become musicians? What is going to be the ultimate change in the world that we're going to see? And we are going to see it, and it is in fact coming, and it's coming in big and loud, like a dump truck.
It's here now. teaching online.
I mean, this is just the beginning, is what I'm saying. So yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I mean, I'm not necessarily like in a position where I just have to deal with this paralyzing terror and overflow of information. Because, like, I mean, to be honest, like, the nice thing about the news is you can just turn it off, and I frequently have to, just so I can maintain my composure. But thinking in terms of like, how is this going to affect us long term? That's, I think, the really scary thing that has a lot of implications that no one has really thought about. And yeah, that's about where I'm at.
How about you, Alex?
You know, a lot. I mean, it's definitely day by day. I think that for me, anything I can do to feel productive helps. And I know that that's my way of coping, but, anything to be productive, and really anything to just get together, anything to get people in a room. And it's funny, I feel like this forum conversation, whatever you want to call it, came at a really good time, because I was experiencing a lot of burnout this week with people just trying to do what they can. There's so many industry roundtables going on right now, and everyone, I feel like, is reacting, and that I just feel really drained from those conversations. And I think that I was really excited to do something like this with you all, because I would really love to spend this time talking about, well, instead of reacting, what would it take to think about rebuilding? And what are the normal things that we are actually going to be excited to watch burn, once all this is over? Maybe a little drastic, but it's fine. It's fine.
It's not drastic. I don't think that that's drastic at all. I think that this is kind of a really
reality.
I mean, it's reality, but it's also a kind of an important signifier of some hopefully major political and social and economic changes that I think we are all going to have to seize upon to some extent.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I'm interested in working in politics to make. I mean, we got a vote coming up on the 3rd of November. That's
crazy.
That's gotta that we really have to start focusing on. We just got to get people into those boxes, clicking blue.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how much that's been back there all of a sudden?
At least as far as the White House is concerned, we got to click blue. I know that party doesn't define everyone. We're really in a dire situation right now.
Yeah. And there's certain things that we just can't ignore anymore, like the healthcare system and the state of that, and just how unaffordable it is for so many people. I mean, people have already been struggling with this, where people have to ration their insulin. They have to choose between insulin and food. Like, I grew up in like a nice, like, middle class, like, comfortable household. And as a kid, I was able to use my parents' health insurance. But I grew up with, like, I have multiple health issues that I've always had. And so whenever I had to go to the hospital, even with that insurance, it was still so expensive. So people are talking about, like, treatment. And then I know that now they've changed it, but at the beginning they were talking about testing being unaffordable. And so we're starting to realize that these things that we've been putting on the back burner, like putting off addressing these issues, we can't ignore this anymore. It's showing us just how bad things really are, and that they do need to be addressed. We do need to talk about them and do something about it.
It's become life or death now.
Exactly.
Before it was always kind of abstract. I believe this and I believe that, and people could kind of distance themselves. Not kind of. People could absolutely distance themselves from everything that was going on. But now it is literally life or death.
Exactly.
We really need to move on this now, and we need to move in a big way.
Well,
It's just terrifying.
I find an interesting metaphor. I don't know if anybody else is feeling this. I'm so pleased that the information is going everywhere about, how to protect oneself from infection. And of course, one of the baselines of that is wash your hands for 20 seconds, birthday song twice, whatever your poison is. But I find, for instance, sometimes I'm watching people and they're I know this sounds really weird, but I keep thinking they're letting the water run for 20 seconds while we're doing this. We got a water friggin' crisis in the world.
Mm.
You know, like how do we incorporate this new, somewhat deadly issue, because it's not going away just when we come out of our houses. This is going to be around for a while. You know, how do we continue to work on best practices that we have in this moment of crisis? Because it's really easy for everybody to start sort of ordering so much takeout and all the plastic comes back. The water run, you know, how do we continue to practice what we know, hold on to it in moments of crisis, be able to pivot and just take that energy and keep walking forward, you know? Generate, you know, 100 years ago is flu. Who knows what it's going to be next? We are mortal and vulnerable, but as a society, how do we take what we know and push that forward?
It's so ironic because Jessica, you saying that, because I went to Theater Washington a few months ago to their annual summit, and the principle was sustainability, and it's just really ironic.
Does that go by the wayside when we're looking for ways to to feed ourselves? To, I mean, you know, this particular crossover from the natural world came out of a food market in an area of the world where people will eat anything and where everything needs to be edible. So what are those issues?
Yeah, it's really interesting. This was something that I wanted to bring up to you all. As I mentioned, we are all artists from all different mediums, and I think that there's been a lot, both politically and within the arts world, there's been a lot of parallels between moving towards social issues like sustainability, like diversity and inclusion. So I wanted to ask you all, from your perspective, what do you think is going to happen to those big questions? Are they going to be put on hold? Is there a way to grow with those questions out of this? What do you think?
I think there is going to be a certain subset of the population that's going to want to put those issues on hold. And I think that is going to be the absolutely worst decision that anyone can make under the circumstances. Because more than now, we need to be very keenly aware of the diverse needs, the diverse aspirations, and the diverse requirements required by our community as artists to perpetuate what it is we do. I mean, that's not necessarily a pejorative statement. That's intended to be kind of like a thing that we've been ignoring for so long. And I think that in the wake of whatever is going to end up happening, we do need to be aware of all of these different facets of our craft as artists, as musicians, as performers, to incorporate that somehow into our understanding of ourselves, of the scene of the arts, and of the state of the arts, and all of this other stuff. So that's my take on it. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, I think you're right. We do need to not lose sight of the big picture, but it's going to be tougher than ever now. If it was tough before, yeah, it was. But people are dealing with their own. We can be empathetic as much as we want, but we're all dealing with our own losses, our own challenges, and we will be for the next year or whatever. This is going to last quite a while. So yeah, I think if we all do our part and try to keep on this and keep on the issues that we believe in, we can do it. But trying to get it into people's heads and just keep that going when everybody's just dealing with so much, it's going to be tough.
I was in a conversation I was having with Alex earlier, and I actually think that it may not be as tough as that. I think that there's an opportunity here, because we see that the actions of a person can affect so many. I mean, you know, cross infection, just taking the paradigm we're living in, that you are also talking a little bit about an opportunity to frame this as in the collective breath of all of us sort of getting out from under our furniture and coming out into the light, you know, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. And that it's an opportunity to say, this is a landscape is incomplete with all of us, without all of us. And so, in fact, I think there's a crisis when we continue to keep that when we continue to keep that narrative front and center. That when you say who we are, I think that the gatekeepers, such as they are at a moment where they are keenly aware of saying, how do we protect our organizations? How do we protect the things we've built, especially in a collaborative fields? So that I think it's a unique opportunity to seize the definition of who we are in a way that I think some organizations have been able to be complacent because everybody's got 1,000 things to deal with. And so I would kind of say, I know I want to be thinking about how do I keep that narrative and how do I keep that modeling of we and us as being so much more inclusive after this break, which always sort of wakes everybody up. A break wakes people up. And so I think it's an opportunity to redefine us, because you jumping on your argument that everybody's going to be going back to ABCs, that the ABCs is every bloody, commonplace person, who no matter who they are, all of us.
And I think it's really interesting too, because that kind of is antithetical to one of the greatest totems of American culture, which is this idea of the individual. Like ever since like the post-World War II era, everything's been about the nuclear family, like living in a suburb with your isolated home, going around in your car. It's the reason why we don't have a strong railway system that goes around nationally. It's this idea of being like protecting your own, staying within your own unit. And now we're realizing that maybe that's not the answer. You do have to think beyond yourself, beyond your household. You have to think in a much more collective way. And as we mentioned before, thinking about how your actions or how your choices don't just impact you. And then also thinking about how we can collaborate together on getting through this, and how we won't get through this unless we start changing that mindset. And when this is over, I would love to see how that idea of that American individual, how that changes.
Yeah, I think that there's a part of the American dream that's definitely going to be challenged, because I think that a lot of that archetype of making it is that rugged individualism. And it's the idea of pulling yourself up and making it alone, making it in spite of others.
Horatio Alger.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Horatio Alger. He's the guy, the ragged dick,
Yeah. So I'm really excited that we're going down this route, because I definitely think that there's something deeper that this is awakening, and that's being challenged right now.
Something I've seen a lot, so in fight directing and in stage combat choreography, not so much as in intimacy choreography, but definitely in stage combat choreography, there's this very deep-seated feeling of ownership. I've created these ideas and they're mine. And people have been very hesitant to share them, lest somebody else get credit for somebody else's work. And I'm guilty of that as well, of course. I've had ideas and like, well, I can't let anybody know, because then what if they take my idea? But since this has happened, there have been Facebook groups and other groups and people just coming together and sharing ideas. There have been so many people that have been like, here is my catalog of everything I do, and you can have all of it. And it's so incredible to watch and to be a part of, just to finally let go of that. No, I don't own this. It's movement. It's a specialized movement, but it's movement. I can't own this. Here's everything. Take what I found, do stuff with it, make it better. Let me see what you've done so that I can build on it. It's this beautiful sharing that's happening right now. And I'm really excited about that. Really excited about that. And I can't wait for that to continue.
I do kind of want to piggyback off of that. Oh, please go ahead.
No, go ahead. That was all I was going to say.
I was just going to make a comment that kind of like along the lines of what Jacqueline was saying, kind of to piggyback up that. I've opened up all of my classes to anyone who is interested in joining them, just because I feel like at this point, since we're doing all of this over Zoom and it is kind of like at this point becoming public domain, it feels unfair to keep people away from it. So if they want to take a class or like listen to a lecture on music appreciation or something like that, then who am I to stop them? Like, they're welcome to join at any time. So I very freely share all of my work with my colleagues, with my peers, with my friends, with my coworkers, and if they join, great, and if they don't, then like that's up to them.
I feel like that's so fabulous in moments of crisis. I have a parent who's fabulous in crisis, but is hell on wheels at every other time. And I sort of think that, to speak to what Rick's point about people are going to come out from under this and think about how they can start making money, start supporting themselves. And so I would urge again that sort of this round from Rick, and we sort of all of us have said something that this move to generosity also be examined as why. I mean, it's wonderful that people are being generous, and on the outside, I'm grateful. But to examine in ourselves, what is this thing that is aroused in me, and hook it to a holistic way of saying, my piece of this is that I was given me to support and my people to support. I cannot do this unless I am part of the whole. And how do I incorporate altruism and survival?
Yeah.
And to me, again, that buy-in is seize the narrative of who we are as each one of us tries to take care of myself. And that requires, as you say, I love that it's possible for people to feel what it's like to give up the need for ownership. I'm worried about ping pong. So to me, it really is, there's an opportunity to really think about what is the common denominator, and the common denominator is survival. We all recognize right now we can't survive without the others, but at a certain point, when it comes down to me getting that part, sorry, others, where can we be smart about aligning our framing of what it takes to survive between group and individual? And
I think that part, I don't know if that part necessarily is incumbent on us, because I feel like for a very long time, like there's this whole stigma over the artist, like, well, you chose this profession and now you kind of made your bed and you have to sleep with it. And I feel like this isn't the time for self-reliance necessarily. Like if you look at most other developed countries around the Western world, like most of them have some sort of provisions in place to accommodate for people who have lost their employment, or who are on reduced employment, or who need to be on subsidy. So I don't think that it needs to be on us, the artists, to dig ourselves out of a hole that we did not dig for ourselves. So I completely understand Jessica's concern here, and I completely sympathize. Like, I mean, there does have to be a need for like where does the ping pong come in? But at the same time, we also have to be fully aware that the general provisions for artists have to fundamentally be altered to accommodate everybody who's been affected by this, because we are not responsible for this. This is not our doing. I mean, I hate to like kind of bring this around to politics, but politics is an important part of what we do, because we are commenting on, in a lot of ways, what we do is commentary on politics, and politics made this happen. I don't think I'm overstepping any boundaries by saying that this is very much a political crisis as much as it is a crisis of health proportions. So, somebody's going to have to unbleep this, and I don't want that responsibility. Like, I want to have the benefit of living in a world where I don't have to worry about that, but I don't want to be the person spearheading it, because I didn't cause this.
No, but there's so much that that isn't our fault, that is still our responsibility. almost every circumstance of human life, which is not our fault. It's not our fault who we're born to. It's not our fault where we live. It's not our fault who our parents were. But when the things that made us are our responsibility to carry or change, or so I would say the same thing is true of politics. And I would also say that, for instance, it's hiding in plain sight that the entire connected universe on every continent is surviving being stuck at home because of the work that we do.
Mm.
It is not irrational for us to start speaking up about that and saying and connecting that to need. I would also love everybody to take care of all the things that have been dumped in my lap, like joblessness for my family, myself, other people. It ain't going to happen. So again, recognizing each of us has things in life that aren't our fault, but they are our responsibility if we wish to change them. It's a way of the world.
Well, and on a more direct level, I think, to your point, we are responsible for ourselves. I mean, we have to charge of this right now. Then whenever the venues open, whenever we're able to kind of get back to some kind of work, it's just not going to be a big green light that stays green. It's not. We're not going to have a vaccine for a year and a half. This is going to go on in our lives for 2 years at least. So we have to start taking charge now of ourselves, of everybody else, of our community. Like with my music community, I host an open mic every week, and people come out. I get maybe 15 musicians every Monday, and I feel kind of responsible for them in a way because I'm hosting this event and they're coming out and they're playing their 3 songs and they're becoming friends. That's all gone now. So when we get back, and I was just talking with my wife about this today, I that's probably one of the most how do I want to say it? We're doing social what is it? Distancing. Social is the most social undistancing thing that you could do because we're sharing microphones. Everybody's touching the mic stands. We're getting up there just one at a time, and then we're all sharing this stuff. I have no idea how I'm going to handle all that, but I want to. I want to make sure that people have a safe place where they can just express what they've been expressing for years, and it's been shut down now. So we need to figure out how to bring that back, and it's going to need to be different than what we've been doing. It has to be.
Yeah. I feel like, let's see, both Rick and Lindsay were with us this morning. At the Hustle and Creative, we also host life coaching office hours. And we were talking about getting to the essence of what it is that we do rather than leaving things at surface value. So, for example, we were talking about, well, like if what we really miss is coming together and sharing music or sharing a community or giving people a voice in the way that we normally do, like what is the essence of that, and how can we distill it and into another medium in this time? Because I mean, we need to. We are, to whatever extent you want or whatever extent you choose. Like we are beholden to the people who count on us for art, who count on us for beauty. So how do we take the essence of what it is we offer and apply it in some other way?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that starts with, I guess, finding that fountain from which we are able to get that creativity to produce something to give. And I think that today we were talking about what do we generally use, what do we find to help us to build and to produce and to create our art. And for me personally, it comes from the outside world. It comes from exploring, going to museums, immersing myself in spaces that I cannot immerse myself in. So we were thinking a lot about how do you find those elements that you get from that outside world? How do you find them at home? How do you find them in place? For me, it's that childish sense of wonder that I need in order to create and then to give. So then how do I access that at home? And that's something that I think that I need to work on and to tap into before I can even think about sharing.
Yeah.
You speak to something really interesting that I keep thinking about. There's been, for me, in my teaching, and a little bit here. We're an example of this, of the silver lining to this cloud. Because what you're talking about is how do I transfer that? The opportunity for so many of us who have open mics, who have been able to bathe deeply in spaces. I'm a theater practitioner, not a film practitioner. That it's really terrific to say this medium has forced me to really pay attention to the potential of this. Look at us all over the country having a meeting right now. This is a meeting that is supportive of the in-place, local, face-to-face, sharing the space work that I look forward to getting back to. I've always thought of them a little bit as either or. I'm of the Hinge generation. I grew up without internet. My kids have never known a world without it, and I teach back and forth. So I'm really interested about the way that, for instance, when you say, I'm in my house, how can I do this? This kind of inquiry to me is the seeds of moving forward, and the seeds of, I keep writing down this word I keep using this word we, back again to who are we? Are these mediums that take away space and to some extent time, a way to reinforce the kind of we that I think all of us have made some illusion that, at least politically and creatively, we're interested in seeing, that we is all of us, everyone. If you're standing, talking, you're we. Sitting, lying, typing, don't care. Human.
I would ask too, and you can take this either in the realm of, for example, Rick, you do so much live performance in restaurants and bars, or you could apply this as like the rest of you are either in higher ed as teachers or as students. But I guess I would ask too, one of the questions I had written down, which is, what does it mean to come together, and why is it important?
Well, in my case, I mean, take the open mic. I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, and what role does art play in that, or should it?
Well, so the open mic aside, that's a gathering place for people of all different kind of talent levels and different motivations. Some people just want to come out there and play their 3 songs and hang out with friends. Others have more ambition than that. They want to try to get shows, and so that's a whole different thing. When I play my shows at regular venues on weekends, it's friends come out and they want to sing along. They want to sing along either to my originals, to the covers, whatever they want to do. It's just a good feeling for everybody. That's all it is. Nothing more than that. They want to eat and drink and have a few hours of a good time. And for that to be gone, for that to be shut off as suddenly as it was, we're all kind of reeling from it. So we do want to find a way to get it back, and it's tough because we talked about the fact that a bunch of my musician friends are doing the live casting and putting their virtual tip jars up there, and just we're kind of crowding a space that was already crowded. But it's all we can think to do right now. So right. It just goes back to, okay, we need to think of something else. And I'm not even sure what that is yet. I'm working on it, but it's tough.
Yeah, I definitely think that even though it's never going to be the same as, of course, being in a room filled with people, that in-person energy is not going to be the same. We do have to work right now with what we have, and what we have is something like this. And I do realize that art, essentially, especially performance, hinges on it's entirely dependent on the ability to be able to gather. But I think that this is starting to challenge my idea of what is a legitimate form of gathering. Because before this, even though I'm a millennial, I did not consider the digital space to really count. But now I'm realizing that I'm going to have to start changing that. I'm starting to realize, can real connections be built on a screen or through text? I'm having to change that, because otherwise the isolation is just going to sink in. And in order to stay mentally healthy, we're going to have to start legitimizing this a little bit more and making the most out of what we have, because this is what we've got.
And there's a place for it. There's a place for it in the biosphere of creating art. You know, that as you say, you're coming to understand, and certainly I'm coming to understand. You know, I was just thinking Pete Seeger's song "God Bless the Grass" that grows from the cracks. Art is art seems to be the eternal byproduct of the fact that humans understand things from the beginning by indoctrination, which requires storytelling, whether it's say mommy, say mommy, say mommy, smile, smile, smile. You know, the byproduct of that, with the way our brains work, is that we create artifice to help us find truth. And I'm convinced that I am not in doubt that art's going to disappear, or theater is going to disappear, or any of these mediums are going to disappear. What we're running up against is that the people who've been practicing have been on the front lines in terms of being casualties economically with this crisis. So I don't want to see those people leave. I don't know how to keep them, but I'm not worried about the art. I'm worried about the artists.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm seeing a lot of, especially since I'm a student, I'm seeing a lot of people starting to question, is it even worth dreaming? Should I be dreaming? Because in order to become an artist, you do have to face the society that constantly tells you, you need to find something else. You need to find something that's more practical. And now that we're seeing what's happening, there's a lot of people who are about to apply for creative programs at colleges, or who are about to graduate, who are wondering, should I have even bothered with dreaming? And I don't know what we tell these people, because right now in the world around us, it's kind of showing something that's not so hopeful. But like you said, with the artist, preserving the artist, and to make sure that they stay on board, how do we keep them on board? How do we show them that it's still worth dreaming?
Yeah.
I think what's really beautiful right now, and I don't want to invalidate anybody's current experience, because it does suck right now. Everything sucks right now. But I think what's really exciting for me as an artist is I'm reminded of, I was an actor for a long time before I became a choreographer. And I remember in acting school, there was this exercise where I had to play a little child. And I had a really hard time with it, because my acting teacher was like, no, just stop thinking. Like, you're just thinking. Like, how would a child play? And I think this is a really great opportunity for us as artists, whatever our medium is, to just stop and rewrite how we create art. Go back to when we were children, because children just play. That's all they do. And it's how they learn life, and it's how they learn how to interact with other people. It's how they learn how to interact with the world, is through play. And we have this opportunity right now to really step back, say, I've been doing this, this, and this for so many years, and it's been working. Well, now this, and this is gone. And we have to assume that it's just gone. So how can I step back, remember what it was like as a child to discover and to find things and to not judge things, and just say, hey, this might work. Oh, it didn't. Okay, throw that out. What about this thing over here? I'll grab it and I'll try it and I'll play with it and see if I can create something out of that. And I'm really excited at looking at my craft. I mean, stage combat is it's so dependent on another person, right? How do I do stage combat? How do I create a fight with just one person in a room? It can be done. I know it can be done. I don't know how yet. I'm working on it.
Keep playing.
In my room, like fighting myself and my cats and my teddy bears. Like, how can I create a story?
We visualized the whole screen with kicking Coronas. I think that we're figuring it out.
Kicking Coronas. That was good.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
But sometimes being able to like disconnect yourself from that knowledge and suddenly finding yourself in that empty, neutral space again with that blank palette. That's what we have when we're kids. Like when I was 7 years old, I started writing, and I thought I could write anything. And it was so easy for me just to create worlds. I built these beautiful worlds in my head, and it was so powerful. But as I got older, it was actually harder for me to create. And then when I started a program specifically geared towards helping me write better, it became really difficult to write. And I expressed this to somebody, and they said the issue is that when you become an adult, you start to know too much. You know too much. And so maybe this could present a really interesting opportunity. And as you said, you're suddenly situated in this new space where you don't know what's going on. What can you use with that lack of knowledge and how can you turn that into something good and return to that space of that childhood self?
Yeah. At the Hustling Creative, we try to instill the idea that the way that we approach our art and the way that we approach the business side of our art is with the same mind and with a united mind. And that's also a really common theme in entrepreneurship. Is so many entrepreneurs will look back and in interviews they'll be like, if I knew what I was getting myself into, I would not have done that. I would not have built Airbnb. I would not have built the VCR. Like if I knew what I was getting into, then I wouldn't have. So I guess that's a source of that's a source of optimism, is like, what can we build because we don't know? Like how can we enable ourselves to build and create and give, not in spite of what we don't know, but because of it.
Yeah. Imagining there's a principle in manufacture. I don't know if it started at DuPont some time ago, but I was doing a show and we were doing some dramaturgy, and it's about the adjacent possible. People knew that the bomb was coming, and there was a race on to make it. The atom bomb. It's how do you build a better toaster? How do we know that we're going to have miniaturization that is as thin as an atom, even though people aren't necessarily making it yet? You can see what's around the corner. And one of the things that happens in a crisis like this, when it is so out of the ken of our culture on every level, not least for political reasons, because we have not been so poorly guided as one of the most powerful nations in the world at such a moment of need for something else. So the dead that are real, and the dead that are metaphorical are there. And the shock, I think, it really knocks us off this idea that there is so much that's the adjacent possible. We just can't see where we're going to be standing when we can pick ourselves up. So it also is hard to be in the impatience of the unknown in a greater way than we have been. But what we know about the universe is that, at this point, gravity still works. And I'm not trying to be obnoxious when I say this. At some point, we will be able to stand and see a horizon and get back to that. I'm here now. What can I do then? So I really love and value these questions, because I think having these questions in our pocket is what's going to keep us wise and responsive to the next adjacent possible, to the next thing that we can play with.
Mm-hmm.
We have to kind of wait for that moment, and that's hard, because hard times are coming for us right now. They're ahead. They're current and ahead, not behind us. And so, if you're listening, or for all of us here, I don't think about that hard place very often, because it makes it hard to get up in the morning. But I also know that that's my best hope, is to have the tools in the pocket, that conversations like this online and with other people keep my kit ready.
Yeah,
I love that. That just hit really hard in my heart. This is the very beginning, and we have, in order to survive, we have to survive, and we can if you do it, and we can do it if we stay together. But this is what it is. This is the world. This is what it is. This is what we have been given. Yeah. I am currently unemployed. That's the way that it is right now. But it's not the way it's going to last if I do something now.
It's very Waiting for Godot. It's I can't go on, I'll go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
Artists are uniquely poised, because the hypothesis, we have a craft that thrives on hypothesis. And that our best work comes from failing forward. No one's gonna die if I fuck the scene up. Mostly, right? So So I know there's a place for us. And I'm ready to be responsible in trying to bring as many people along with us in our industries as they strive to pay the rent and take care of their children. But the art's not going nowhere. And we have a piece of what comes in dawn. You know, already we're the dawn for people every day as they get on and stream their favorite shows. That's us. That's us doing that.
That really reminds me of Lindsay. You sent us a really awesome article when we were just brainstorming about this conversation. For anyone who has not yet seen it, it's from American Theater Magazine, and the quote goes, "Theater has survived worse, even in its cradle. The plague of Athens killed some 25% of its population. Shakespeare's career was famously interrupted by the Black Plague, during which time the bard and his colleagues did three things. They made plans for what they were going to do when theaters reopened. They toured the provinces, sold props, costumes, bundled plays, and sold them. And that's how the first folio got made. And they went to the king and said, help." I love that.
Yeah, I think there is some reassurance when we look back at history, knowing that, you know, theater survived before, the arts have survived before. I cannot promise that we're just going to be able to jump right back into things immediately. But the fact is, and the fact of the matter, and the most important thing, is that at some point we will get back on track. One thing that I've been kind of concerned about is that, and I was also one of these people. I used to think that when this was all over, there would just be this day where we all just run out into the streets, like those photos that, of the end of World War II. You know, everyone's just partying, and we all just flood the theaters and flood the cinemas and the concert halls. And then I started to wonder, wait, hold on a second. If this lasts, even for as long as it has, for these, well, it's lasted for longer than this, but I think in America, a lot of us have only been living this kind of life for a couple of weeks now. When this is over, will I be able to go into a theater or a concert hall, sit in a crowded space, shoulder to shoulder with somebody? Will I be able to psychologically enter that space, or will I have some kind of form of PTSD after all of this? How easy will it be for me to enter that? And then also economically, a lot of the money that we spend on entertainment is expendable income. And already the theater, especially like with Broadway, like look at Hamilton. Most people cannot afford those tickets anyway. Opera, historically speaking, has been a space that is for people of a specific class. So when people are losing money, when people are afraid of this close contact, how easy will it be for us to transition back into it? We will at some point, because history has shown us that it's possible. But how long will that take, and what will that transition period look like?
That's all going to depend on how green that green light is for us, and that's going to be state by state, region by region. It's not going to be. There hasn't been a national order for anything, so we're all kind of in our own little islands. So yeah, people are going to want to flock back. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of shyness about it, but the flocking back will usher in that second wave a little quicker, because those numbers are going to start going up. They just are. So I don't know if that means we're back open for 3 or 4 weeks and we shut back down, or what that's going to be like. But it's just not going to be clean. And that's kind of the problem. And then if that happens and we shut down again, then I think that hurts the confidence of everybody. That's when we start really thinking about, well, okay, we can't get back. We just can't. So that's going to hurt us as the creatives, as the people trying to say, hey, take this. We want you to be a part of this.
Unless it's part of the narrative. I don't know how we make it part of the narrative, but we're all reading the same newspapers, and we're all reading that there's probably going to be a second wave of this. So I think that, again, you know, it's on us to get loud, and to be willing to frame the narrative in a large sense, you know, to say, we have a week, come and join us for a week's run of. And let's see what happens in October. Yeah. You know, we can take the elephant out of the room.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We gotta get loud getting those grants, Rick. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's gonna be a mess, and just getting loud with it.
I think it comes down to what we're doing right now, because right now is what's important. We can plan for the future, and we can plan for our theaters to reopen and our venues to reopen and everything, but it's not gonna do anything for us if we're just stuck here. So what are we doing right now that we can survive on and that we can thrive on? How are we changing art today? That if it were like this for the next 4 years, God forbid, but if it were, how am I sustaining myself? How am I supporting others, but also making a living for myself right now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Right. I don't think we have the answers yet. But you're right. We have to start thinking about it. We have to start being part of the change, because it's going to be with us for a while.
I think we are. I think I'm seeing it. This move to give things away is also a move to say, I'm here. We're here. This art is here. And I want to connect with you because I care about what's happening to you in crisis. That's the seeds of, now I'm not in crisis. It is 20 years later and we still haven't left our houses. I'm making it absurd so it's not so scary. But that
totally working.
That's exactly living in that biosphere, and that we are creating. It is a question, but I don't think we're going to have to start doing it. We're doing it. This is the thing. This is the thing we're doing. I mean, I love y'all, but the reason I'm here is because we do this for a living in one way or another.
Yeah.
There's something I read recently, and this might not be apropos of anything. It just came into my head, where I've spent a lot of time reading historical novels, historical fiction. I love. And there's somebody said something about like, oh, well, what would you do if you were back then? You would do what you're doing right now. And that's coming to mind a lot. Like, what am I doing right now? Because now is then, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Reading all the World War II historical fiction novels, what I'm doing right now is what I would do back then. So if you're not happy with what you're doing now, you better fucking change it.
Yeah.
That's what you would do.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you say that, Jax, because when we were putting together Artists Feeding America, it was, if you weren't there, it was something that came together on a shoestring and a prayer with a few thousand people and a few $1,000s in 5 days. And I didn't know if it was going to happen, but too many people thought that it was going to happen for it to not happen. And what really kept me going, the two kind of mantras that I had for myself, one of them was, when people ask me where I was 20 years later, when they say, where were you in the pandemic of 2020? What do I want to say? Like, do I want to say I was bemoaning the off-Broadway show that got indefinitely postponed? Or do I want to say I took part in feeding 60,000 children who otherwise would not have food because of this crisis? So it's like, well, what are you going to say? And then the other thing, I don't know, I'm really curious if anybody else other than Jax and I have had some kind of mantra throughout all of this. But one of my mantras is from Game of Thrones, and it's that chaos is a ladder. And it's just, it's just stuck with me. So is there anything that you kind of held on to in this time?
What day are we talking about? Bad days.
That matters, remember?
Breathe. Frankly, breathe. When I remember to breathe, all else becomes a little clearer. Breathe.
I think for me, it's not.
Go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Well, I think we talked about it earlier, just having a routine. If you had a routine before, keep it. Even if it doesn't matter as much, like I should be out playing a show right now. Don't even want to think about that, actually. So whatever. But so I'm doing something different. But it doesn't matter that my Friday and Saturday shows are gone. Every morning I'm getting up at the same time, doing the same things, just keeping some kind of routine, some kind of normalcy, just to keep everything balanced. Because every day is going to present something different to us for a while.
Pet a kitty. That's what you should do, is pet a kitty, right, Alex?
I got 2 cats. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Alex has you beat on 4. I don't know, dude.
I don't need that many.
Like when cats can outnumber me, that's like, if a cat can outnumber me, if I can't like punch a cat and it's out if it tries to like attack me, then I'm out. That's too scary.
I feel like if a cat is attacking you, you're
know
already setting yourself up for failure. If a cat is attacking you, kind of,
it's already too
doing
late.
it wrong.
Not if I have a dog to protect me. So
Listen, I've watched The Tiger King more times than I care to admit. If a cat is attacking you, you're done.
They're not all that big.
I'm pretty sure I can take them.
I like your idea. Have a routine, and my routine partly has stayed the same, and it's partly changed, but it is really. And again, it's sort of like breath. What's the next best thing I can do with this moment? What's the next best thing I can do with this moment? And some of that routine to me is an extension of things that I've started to put into place over the last couple of years. It has a lot to do with thinking of what are the points of my heart hygiene? You know, I know how to take care of my teeth. I have tooth hygiene, but I also have mental hygiene. I have emotional hygiene. And I have work hygiene. And it's really sort of, those are helpful ways for me to think about breaking down my mindful approach to any number of things into small, easily achievable, pieces. And that there are really very few, but pretty essential steps to almost all these parts of my life that if I do them regularly, I sometimes wonder if I did them at all. Did I brush my teeth already? But that I can sort of thinking about the things that I can do every day that fall into hygiene leaves me room to have a plan, to have a schedule, to have those other things, having already put myself in the game. Making my bed is part of my is actually part of my it's part of my psychological hygiene. If I've made my bed, I have accomplished something with my day. It's just something tiny, achievable, doesn't require much. Those things are really, really helpful. And I would say to people, if you're feeling trapped, think of the things that every day put you in the space to actually do the bigger things, and start thinking of them as ways that you can incorporate, put them into the muscle memory. You don't even have to think about them anymore, but that's really helpful.
Yeah, Jessica, I think that's really, really important. I think you're hitting on something really, really crucial, is that we give ourselves some routine, because there is no routine. There are no rules anymore, right? We live in a world with no rules right now. So except wash your hands and don't touch people.
Yeah.
It's so important to give yourself a routine, but it's also important to, you're going to have so many feelings and you're going to have so many emotions that come up, and to just recognize that every single one of them is okay and valid. And sometimes they're going to be out of scale. Like this morning I woke up angry at my fiance for, I don't know why. And I was crying and I was like, you're the worst, whatever. It doesn't matter. It was out of scale, but the feelings are real and the feelings are valid and they're worth being like, okay, I'm sad today. That's okay. Or I'm happy today. That's okay. Whatever's going on, just accept it. Don't judge it. Just accept it and let it go, and then move on with your day. And I think that's how.
Yeah. And if you have a hygiene, then you get to put the dishes away, no matter how you're feeling, because it's not about plan or will I get done what I planned. It just becomes, I can execute this in whatever state I'm in. And they're really, really helpful.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting what you said about legitimizing your emotions, because I feel like every single time that I start to feel some kind of negative thing that I really need to share in order to just get that out, that feeling of catharsis, I feel kind of guilty. because I start to think, well, yeah, like I'm disappointed that this was canceled, that my program might not work out the way that I wanted to, or I'm just apprehensive. Then I start to think about, well, things could be much worse. Like I don't have anyone in my life right now who is ill. I'm not one of the people that might not get a chance to graduate this year, who's having to worry about where their next meal is going to come from. And so then sometimes I think it is kind of difficult when you recognize that you're in a relatively privileged position. It's really difficult for you to be able just to say, okay, you know what, but it's still okay for me to take out this time to acknowledge the fact that it is okay to feel bad, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense that you have a lot of resistance to catharsis, considering you came from a program in England. So yes, you should be ashamed of emotional indulgence over there.
Yeah. My creativity went out the window, at least for the first 2 weeks of this crisis. I saw people start putting things online. There was a little bit of, compare and despair, but mostly I had shame around not feeling creative.
Mm-hmm. How did you get over that?
And to understand that, we're built even before the urge to connect is the urge to survive, and that it's flight, fight, or freeze. And that freeze isn't a shameful state. Freeze is a legitimate, as I say, I often feel like I'm just on the balls of my feet. I don't have a path. It's okay to be where I am. Without shame, either about comparing, as you say, or saying I should, those shoulds or shouldn'ts, about comparatively, just about not feeling like I'm myself. I'm not particularly myself on some of these days.
And so what do you do? And what have you done to, if not get over, then get through that freeze?
To recognize that I'm where I need to be. Really, I say breathe. It's that simple physically, but I really am talking about observing where I'm at, and saying, "Oh, that's where I'm at. That is a biological, or that is a living creature has various ways to survive what they're in, and look at me doing this right now." So I think it's a kind of acceptance, though, however, requires will. And when you're frozen, you don't necessarily have will. So to just breathe, observe, be where I'm at, recognize that I'm not necessarily in control of being on the planet right now. It's okay.
I think there's some comfort in knowing that, for me, there's a lot of comfort in knowing that everybody in the world is thrown off their game.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in the world is thrown off their game. We are literally all in this together. All of us. The world, Earth, is in this together. We are not alone. Nobody is alone. You may feel it, and that's fine, and that's valid, but feelings aren't facts.
Yep.
You're not alone.
And I don't feel alone. I just felt like, what the hell? Who am I if I'm not creating?
Yeah.
Who am I if I'm not doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, especially in the creative industries, we tend to be workaholics, and we tend to feel like we always need to be creating something and producing something. And there was a thing that was going around on Twitter saying, well, Shakespeare wrote King Lear when he was in quarantine, so you should be creating something great too. But then I have to take a step back and then realize, you know what? If I just want to be a vegetable today, that's what's going to happen. If that's what I need in order to recuperate and then get back that space, then that's what I need to just give myself. Once again, it's about giving yourself that permission. First I need to get into with, what am I going through? How am I feeling? I can't repress these things, because otherwise it's not going to be healthy. So just, I guess, getting in touch with what's going on here first before I can move on and create, and to take that pressure off.
Yeah. And I will say too, on top of that, Lindsay, is that taking care of what's in here, that's also work. That's not being a vegetable like that. That's work. And that's the hard work. That's the hard work, because that's the work that people who are chicken shit aren't going to do. They're going to escape all day. They're going to find ways of escaping all day.
Well, that's what you need to do sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Find the chicken
I think
shit.
we're all workaholics, I think, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're always pushing and pushing and pushing. So I think when this happened, we wanted to stay in that mode because we felt like we had to, but there's almost no way to. If we've lost work that we know is not coming around for a while, okay, you can try to just beat your head against the wall and think of alternate ways, which we need to do. But to do that as much as we were our regular work, that's where it gets frustrating. And I think for us to actually, like you said, Jessica, we do need to just chill out once in a while and just be okay with chilling out. And that can be tough, but we got to refresh somehow.
Yeah. I was shocked. I was shocked to be stilled, without creativity. Then I was shocked to find out I was ashamed about it. And then I just looked at that and went, wait, I just got unteased that knot. And we can just all untease that knot a little bit. That's where we're at.
It can feel good.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself here, I don't count myself as a workaholic at all. But one of the things that really helped me was kind of re-evaluating what I do in my professional life and kind of putting all that time that I had, because what happened with Delaware was basically University of Delaware started their spring break 2 weeks early and then extended it by an extra week. So we basically had like 2 weeks to just sort of sit on our asses and move our classes online, essentially. So that process did not take me very long because it's not a very time-consuming process for classic music appreciation, where 90% of the content is designed for online anyway. So, I did that relatively easily, and the rest of my time I basically just kind of re-angled, and I was like, all right, so I have these other things that I need to do, and in order to complete those things, like, you just have to kind of modify your schedule to accommodate those things that you wouldn't normally have time for, and you just kind of make it work. So from my perspective, while I understand that all of you guys are kind of speaking right from needing to take the time away from this, I didn't necessarily have that option, because it was just sort of re-evaluating what my time needs to be funneled towards and doing it that way. So that's another perspective on it. I'm not sure if that resonates with anybody, but I just kind of wanted to provide like this alternative take on managing your time, basically.
Yeah. That's what discussion's for. That's interesting because that segues into a question that I was really excited to ask, especially you, Alex, both of us coming from UD, and you, Jessica, because both of you are higher education educators. But the Hustling Creative, we started because I was really frustrated at the higher education system, particularly for artists and the way it services artists and the way that it prepares artists. And so I'm wondering if, in your mind, you predict or you desire some kind of shift in higher education and what it means and its value, particularly for people in the creative field.
Go ahead, Jessica.
It's one of those tell me what it's like to be an American questions. It's a big one. Do I think education should be changed? Do I think that this crisis occasions a moment for us to look at changing the priorities of education? No more so than any other. I think that I think that I believe part of your problem, part of the challenge for you, Alex, and what you were so frustrated about was how higher education failed to speak with artists about what it's actually like to try and make a living being an artist.
I don't think that was part of my frustration, but please keep going.
No, I'm sorry, Alex Palting. So I'm sorry. So that that is already something that I can agree with, and I think that there needs to be a marriage there. And certainly something that I know that we talk about our students. We talk to our students at length about it at MC, about what is it like to have a life as an artist and pay the rent and try and pay the rent that way. And what does it look like? So no, I think that what this crisis may do is actually have given me tools, as I was saying earlier, to be able to incorporate distance learning, using the internet, using other kinds of means to process information. But I don't think that we are going to lose the need to either use craft to teach people how to think, or to start teaching, or to keep teaching the crafts that have been handed to us. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Whatever comes out of your mouth answers my question,
Okay.
Jessica, and all of you. Goes for all of you.
Yeah. I don't think it needs to be rebuilt, because we haven't come crashing down. If anything, we've been able to be really responsive about changing over to the internet. And in some ways it's reductive, but in some ways it's actually making me have to think much, much clearer about what I'm trying to impart, because there are ways to impart that online. Something is lost, but something is gained.
Well, and now the online space is so crowded. We got everybody. This is the only way we can get to people. So yeah, you do have to be super focused on what you're trying to do.
But when you're talking about rebuilding gigs, which are real, because that stopped, higher education actually, as the other Alex was speaking about, it's much more about how do we pivot on our heel, and our institutions, large and small, have been pretty good about that pivot.
Sure.
Rebuild.
Yeah, just wanted to put in my 2 cents. I don't quite share this optimistic outlook regarding the future state of higher education. I mean, I say this as somebody who's been in higher education for over a decade. So here is my instinct, and this is something that I've observed over the course of the past 10 to 15 years, both as a student and as an employee in the higher education system. Right now, the higher education system is extremely reliant on adjuncts. Like, adjuncts are pulling 90% of the weight for maybe 10% of the pay. And I'm going to be quite honest with you, after this, the adjuncts are going to be fucked. Like, this is the state of higher ed right now. There is, like, unless there is going to be some very serious consideration for the needs of adjuncts, there is going to be a thing that's going to happen, and it's not going to end particularly well for anybody who's not a full professor. And this is a consideration that we have to keep in mind. Like, I've spent a lot of my time being an adjunct, and it sucks. Like, it's not a good place to be under the best circumstances. Because I remember when I was living in Boston, what I had to do is I was adjuncting at 2 separate colleges. I had to literally go from one job, like get in my car after I was done teaching with my class in the morning, drive to another institution across town, teach a class there, basically pick up my pay once every month. And there was like hardly any work-life balance included in that. So I think when the hammer is going to fall, and it is going to fall, the first people to feel the brunt of that blow are going to be the adjuncts. So while, from my somewhat privileged position as an assistant adjunct professor, so that means I have kind of like a pretty secure position, and I'm kind of exempt from all of the administrative stuff, but I still get to have a full load of teaching and make a salaried paycheck. What that means is that anybody who's teaching as an adjunct is immediately going to feel the repercussions of this. And I don't think it's going to be positive. I don't think it's going to be a very good outcome. So the higher education is going to absolutely feel this. I don't want to cast like doom and gloom here, but my instinct is that it's not going to be a good change for anybody who's just kind of like trying to get into academia. And it's certainly, and the most tragic thing about all of this is that it is not going to end well for the students, because so many of our students right now in the higher, like in the undergraduate and to some extent in the graduate level programs, are reliant on our adjuncts, some of whom, in fact, you know what? Pause. All of whom are fantastic instructors. They're all deserving of their positions, but our students are reliant on that chunk of our education to provide them with the information and the knowledge that they need. And if that gets eliminated, they are essentially going to be left left up a very particular kind of creek without a paddle. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not feeling particularly optimistic about this. Like, I've been kind of thinking about this for a while, and this just kind of solidifies the fact that, like, this isn't going to go away, and we're all going to have to be affected by this. So
yeah, and I wouldn't argue with that. And I am an adjunct, and I really wouldn't argue with that. But I also, again, think of historicity and short term. It's going to be hard for us. It's going to be hard for me to get out of my job. But in the long term, what students need will be met. Not as soon as they need it, maybe, but in order to survive, you have to serve your client.
Yeah.
So
Alex and anybody else, like, if you, like, what would you say to an adjunct or someone who is planning on going that route, or what would you say to the people in higher education who want to advocate for adjuncts and for the people who are going to be, at the bottom of the pecking order?
Honestly, I wouldn't say anything to them. I would just listen to them. I would listen to what their needs are. I would listen to what they want. I would listen to what their expectations are from a system that has just consistently overworked them and relied on them as essentially wage slave labor and is now about to leave them in the dust. I would listen to them first and foremost.
Yeah, and now we're switching, because I think that there is something to do, and it's about the system. Learn to get your qualifications for teaching online, which is not the opposite of what Alex is saying. But I would say that one thing that adjuncts can do that is practical and real is actually, I'm teaching online now because I must, and I was in the middle of a semester, and my institution is backing us because they want to see us finish the semester. But I'm going to go get that qualification, because I think Alex really did speak to a change that's coming, which is looking at models of delivering and what's going to happen in the short term. So both listening, but also get that qualification is what I would say.
So I'll open that back up so that we can include the rest of the group as well. And so I would say that whether it's a student or whether it's a mentee or anyone else, is there something that you think that the coming generation of artists should know, should prepare for, should come ready with into this brave new world?
Come ready with ideas. Just, I can speak for myself, like, bring me ideas. Give me things. What do you want? What do you need? And listen to other people. What do people want? What do people need right now? I'm listening to you two talk. I'm in my first year of adjuncting, and yeah, like I hear you, and I feel it already, and it's terrifying. And I look at my students that are all grad students, and I don't know, what do they need? What do you need from this? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because that's how we all ended up in the arts anyway. There's following advice, and then there's taking advice under advisement. Most of our graduate students, most of our students in the arts, specifically heading for the arts, already have some ideas about thinking outside the box. I think this myth that you have to suffer is just not true, but you do have to maybe hustle, because your life will not be one where all those pieces are integrated a priority. You're going to find what kind of artist you're going to be by what you end up doing. It's going to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So listening to what people want to do and being able to speak to that piece of what they're bringing you.
I think, just speaking as a student myself, something that I'm always thinking about is what is the future of art? What opportunities are new technologies going to present us with? So I've always been thinking about the future, trying to at least. And sometimes that does mean pulling from other disciplines or trying to explore how I can pull in other things to end up enhancing the delivery of my writing or of a form of performance or storytelling. And so I think that right now, as a student, that this situation that we're in has caused me to think a lot about what does the future of art look like, at least for the time being. How can we end up using the space and the resources that we have right now to adapt and to accommodate the stories that we have to tell? And so I have been trying to think a lot about that. And all I can really think of right now would be how can we collaborate but in place. So I've been thinking a lot about like animation. Can that survive? Podcasting, the radio play. Will we see a resurrection of that? Will that come back? Because that can also be created in place. So I think as a student, what does bring me that kind of optimism, and what I'm always trying to think about is what historical things can we bring back, and maybe what innovative things can we bring into this space so we can keep creating and not feel like we're stuck or like there's no point in going into these creative fields of study.
I would agree with that. I would also say that diversification is really important right now. There's been a lot of emphasis on specializing, on being really good at the one thing you're good at. And I think right now, wearing many different hats, particularly in academia, but also in just general in performing arts and creative arts, is becoming more and more important. And I'm seeing a lot of my colleagues kind of like really reaching deep into their bag of tricks and pulling out all the stops and basically saying like, oh, I'm really good at this thing. Like I used to be good at photography. Well, I can kind of pivot that to modify my skill set to do photography for X, Y, and Z. Or I could do like product photography or like things like that. Or I can just like literally have Etsy artists send me their wares so that I can set up a studio in my living room, photograph their things for them, and make out a living that way. So there's just a variety of different possibilities that we can explore. And I think that it's really important for us to interface with other artists and to borrow from their skills and their opportunities and abilities to kind of supplement our own. And I think that our ability to be adaptable in this environment becomes extraordinarily crucial.
Mm.
I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think that I agree with the fact that nothing exists in a vacuum. And I think the really interesting thing about education especially is the way that we're presented right when you're applying for a college program is that everything's divided into a specific box that you have to check. You apply for one specific program where you say that you do one specific thing, when really everything kind of flows and connects with each other. Everything informs each other. At NYU in undergrad, I did an interdisciplinary program where I actually discovered that in order to really understand something, you really do have to pull from different mediums. I studied storytelling and its impact on society and the way that we think and the way that we empathize. And I found myself pulling from like philosophy and sociology and like media studies and propaganda and like literature. There's so much.
So fun.
Work together.
I'm like nerding out right now.
Yeah. And so I think this is a really exciting time for us to, as you said, to start exploring these other things. Look at what other people are focusing on. Tap into those smaller things that you kind of had, that you kind of consider to be more of your minor focus areas or your minor skill sets. See how you can cause those things to blend and work, because I think that's the future and that's definitely the way forward.
Yeah. I would call on Rick too, because you are, you're a classic two-hander. You've got your musicianship and also voiceover. And so
Right.
I'm wondering what your perspective is on that.
Thanking God that I got into voiceovers 3 years ago, because if I hadn't, I'd be screwed.
Yep.
But yeah, really, it's being as diverse as possible is so important. And that's why I think even musically, I can't play my shows, can't host my open mics, but if I can get my mind back around it, I can still write songs. And there are so many different ways to work around this. I don't know how many of them are really financially beneficial. Maybe not a whole lot. Maybe we're just going to be building these little pieces right now and then hoping that once we get back out there, we can turn them into something.
Yeah.
Outside of, again, like the virtual tip jars, which is fine, we're not going to be making a whole lot of money doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I definitely think that we would be remiss to talk in an industry conversation if we did not talk at all about money. Whether we should be holding space for worrying about it, whether we should not, like what should even means. I mean, I just think that, for many artists, especially artists who are fighting out of a system of scarcity and into a system of abundance in order to create, it's the elephant in the room. Money's on everyone's mind right now.
Well, here's a pivot. We've been talking about what we can do for advice for the next generation, and the wonderful sort of advice from people. Listen to what people need. Listen to what our students need, but also teaching our students and remembering ourselves. Listen, because when you listen, something's gonna, you're always gonna learn something. Something's going to catch your attention that you want to follow. We have all developed our specialties because something, caught our attention. Something was shiny for us. And when you talk about money and making money, being sensitive to what people want or what the opportunities are requires keeping that ear out, so that your ear is a good way to help you make money. What do people need? What can I say yes to?
I've been doing weekly live casts on Facebook. I alternate 1 week's voiceover, 1 week's music. Was doing that all last year. Took a little break just because I needed to. Brought them back because of this crisis, because I kept hearing from people, we need to hear the music. Please give us something. So I'm doing these now for other people. I think I picked up my guitar maybe 5 times in the last 3 weeks. I don't care right now. I just don't. But I'm doing it for other people, but it's also still keeping those connections and keeping them interested in what I'm going to do in the future. So it's a little bit of giving and maybe taking a little bit and just trying to build it back up.
Yeah. I think that, Rick, speaking to your point about live casting, I feel like everyone is doing live casting right now. And yes. I think that there's so many, I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like there's a spidey sense that tingles when I see people who live cast because they're looking for viewers or they're looking for PayPals or Venmos. And something that I wrote about when in an article about the fundraiser was about basically the idea of technology, for better or worse, is democratizing. Like, I don't think anyone would listen to me because they have, like, without like, just if I were just thinking about my talent, because anyone can listen to Patti LuPone, anyone can listen to Lady Gaga's Super Bowl show, like anyone can listen to a different Met HD broadcast every night. If I'm just thinking about talent and thinking in that very linear way that talent equals value, then I'm not going to get the reward that I'm looking for in viewers or money. So there's something else there.
To that, I would say the musicians, the community we have here in Central Ohio is huge and it's deep. So I think we're all trying to get out there because we're trying to support each other. And I've actually seen a lot of generosity just as far as people will put out a post saying, hey, who's going live tonight or this evening or the next couple of days, and they'll adjust their schedules around it to not be in the same space.
I want to move to Ohio. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice. And again, I mean, it's probably not going to amount to much in the long run. Those aren't going to change or aren't going to be enough to sustain us once we get the yellow or green lights that we're going to get. But it's helpful for now because, again, we're all in shock and we're all just trying to cope and give people what they need.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. As you said, when we see the yellow or green light, what's going to happen now that we have these new communities that we're building? These new, I don't want to say like network necessarily, because sometimes the word network implies that you're going in there to get something from somebody else. But yeah, it kind of is a network that we're creating, because we don't always realize it, but sometimes when you go out with the intention just to give a little bit of joy or hope to somebody, or just to do something completely selfless, sometimes you still are building that community and you don't even realize that you are building that web of support. And I'm really excited to see, once we're let back out into the wild, what's going to happen, because I don't think those webs of support are going to go away. And there was this really interesting case on LinkedIn. There was this animator called Jesse Bray, and he just made this post and he said, look, I understand that people need a little bit of happiness in their life right now. I'm just going to start creating minimalist avatars for anyone who wants them. Don't pay me money. If you want to give some money, then like, here's a charity link, give the money to charity. And all of a sudden he has like thousands of people who are standing behind him, who are doing everything they can to support him. And when this is all over and when this is all said and done, he's suddenly going to have this wonderful new community of people that he got just from doing little things to make people happy and just giving a little bit of himself. So it's not always about necessarily going out there to seek what you can get out of this for you, but sometimes something good does come along that does end up making things brighter for you when you get out of this. And I do think that community, that network, that support is going to be really interesting.
And that may be a side effect of, he's doing this selflessly, but he is building a network, like you said. So he's going to come out of this really in good shape.
Yeah. What do you say, Alex?
I feel like I'm just being Debbie Downer in this conversation, but what else? Alex knows me, so like, what else is new, right? Like, I mean, this is just kind of what I do. I mean, this is why you invited me, after all, right? Like, so
yeah,
here's,
shoot us down. We love it.
But here's my concern, right? So I'm not thinking about the individual. I'm thinking about the organization. So, as a pianist, I am represented by an agency that kind of covers like a lot of DC, Northern Virginia, and Maryland, parts of Pennsylvania. And I spoke to my agent yesterday, and he and I have a very good working relationship, but we've also kind of gotten very close over the past year. We're good friends, so we talk about our personal lives a lot. And he's got a situation where he has 2 kids in college, 1 kid about to enter college. He is, or was rather, I should say, before this shit hit the fan, the primary breadwinner. And right now he depends basically on commissions, right? So he books artists like me to play venues. He gets a cut of the profits or the proceeds, and that's essentially what sustains him as a livelihood. Right now, he's making nothing. He's making zero. Another thing that I'm working with is, of course, Imagination Stage down in Bethesda, Maryland, which Alex was a part of for a very long time. They are currently shuttered completely to the point where they've closed down their one of their programs for aspiring theater directors, which is the apprentice program. So that program is completely gone. They've had to cut it because there's no way for them to sustain it, which is a tragic loss, really. We had so many extraordinarily talented musicians and extraordinarily talented theater professionals, and that's gone for good. Like, that's not coming back. And then right down the street from me, there's a ballroom, an actual, like, honest to God ballroom. Alex and I have worked there together. It's the Mobtown Ballroom. They are literally a couple of weeks away from filing for bankruptcy because they are able to sustain their rent payments. So while it's great for individual artists to be getting their money through a tip jar, and it's fantastic, and I wish them nothing but good, I am really concerned for organizations that are being sustained by attendance, by numbers, by the by basically just like delicately balancing this thing on the precipice of just barely squeaking by and making next month's rent so that they can continue to do the same thing over and over and over. And again, I keep coming back to this over and over in my mind. There is no safety net for what we do. Like, it's fantastic that each one of us has, to some extent, been able to carve out a niche for ourselves. Like, I'm fine, Alex is fine, all of you are probably fine. But there are lots and lots of things out there that are not fine, that are literally on the verge of bankruptcy. And like, what's going on with those organizations? Like, I want to continue to be able to play at Mobtown Ballroom once every like 4 or 5 months, that's probably no longer going to be an issue, like because Mobtown is going under. I want to continue working at Imagination Stage. That's obviously also not going to be a thing because Imagination Stage is probably going to cut me from their summer program because they're not going to have enough money to pay me. So, like, what about money? Like, what about money for those organizations? I mean, I fully realize that I'm really bringing like this really dark cloud over this question, but this is I think this is an extremely important question, and we're not really dealing with this as a nation, you know?
Yeah.
Alex, you're right, and I'm glad you brought it up, and it is a downer, but it is reality because that's part of what is driving me to change. I know my career is never going to be the same. There are so many bars that just didn't have kitchens or anything, and they're closed. I have no idea what their status is now. Many of them will just never recover. They're going to close down. So there goes some friends' livelihoods. I mean, God knows what's going to happen. But it's also places for us to play. So it's taking those kind of things away. There are so many places out there that are going to struggle week to week, and many will just close down. They won't ever recover. So yeah, so even like if we get the green light to start playing again, well, there's not going to be as many. And on the flip side, I've had friends who are trying to do this full time as well, and they don't have a backup. They don't have a second career. So as soon as this happened, they said, I'm screwed. There was nothing they could do, nothing they could fall back on aside from just getting a regular job somewhere, which what are you going to do there? So yeah, that's impacting everybody, every business.
Yeah, there is death involved in this. This is a pandemic, and the death is not just of individuals, but of institutions. So I don't think you're a downer at all. I think that's real. And I think that, again, as individuals, we can clamor for those spaces. And your ballroom may be closed. Maybe your owners will be poised to open another place. Maybe somebody else will come in and open another place. But it won't happen unless we clamor, unless we do what we can to keep, and again, it sounds so goofy, but these places existed because somebody imagined that they could exist, and they imagined that they could open the business, and they could imagine that if they opened it, if they built it, people would come. So I want to keep your Debbie Downer, your self-described Debbie Downer question front and center, because attention does have to be paid. And it's only by paying attention to what we lost that we seed the ground for growing what we can when we come out of our houses. Because I don't know what other answer I personally am poised to have. And but I can roll up my sleeves, and I can make a din, and I can make a difference. I can pick up a hammer, and I can show up and play if I'm a musician, and I can redo my schedules. And that's both on the micro, but also on the macro, because the institutions some of them are going to die.
And I'm wondering too, Jessica, going along with that, I'm thinking about what we can do as artists, and I am going to caveat this by saying that this is idealistic, and I want you all, you five, to help me bridge the gap between idealism and reality. But I think that a lot of the reason that institutions will not be able to recover, and one of their biggest struggles is going to be, like Lindsay said, people are going to have psychological and emotional barriers to actually getting out of their house and getting into a space that is filled with people. And so I'm wondering if there's a place for us as artists to contribute just by hacking away at that fear, and hacking away at that mindset of being fearful and fearful of others. And I mean, I will say this also as an Asian American. Like, I think that there is a space for the arts to hack away at the fear that is a result of this crisis. And maybe that's a way that we can help to impact the places and the spaces that we love. So I'll bring that back to you guys.
I think, like I was saying at the very beginning of this, that I've been shocked and amazed and so happy with people that have been lending their support and lending their art to other people. I think it's also going to be up to us to help bring other people up with us as we continue to climb. Like I said before, I am, I'm a fight director. I work at Columbia, but I'm only one semester. So, and right now I'm not there. I am completely unemployed. Luckily for me, and I realize I am extremely privileged. Luckily for me, my fiance is working. He's still teaching and getting his normal paycheck. But if it were not for him, I would have nothing. But there have been a couple of people who are employed right now, who are teaching at universities, they're working different places, that have extended some jobs out to me. They have worked really hard within their institutions to bring me on as a guest artist. So it's not a lot, but I'm getting something. And I think that it's up to us, the people who are working, to bring other people up with us. It's not, yeah, it's dog eat dog. Yes, it's all about, like, you have to look out for you and you've got to, like, create your own art. But it's also, you are not art. You as an individual are not art. You need other people. So if you can bring them up with you, give them some work. If I can miss out on a day of work to give somebody else a day of work, that's great. I don't know. Just check your privilege and see where you are, and can you help somebody else? And then we can all.
We were talking about we had a faculty meeting today, and that's what we were talking about, was trying to move some monies around to bring people in. We don't all sink or swim together, but yeah, we do.
Yeah. As a whole, like as a complete whole, we do sink or swim together.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So since we are coming to the end of our time together, I guess the last question that I would ask is, if we are all in this together, what is the unique and distinct role in your eyes of the artist?
We tell story.
And why is that valuable?
Because people's, the mind doesn't actually have anything to do with reality. Just think of it this way. Your brain exists in your cranium and has never seen light, but you don't think of your consciousness as a dark place. The sense you make of what happens outside is because you make story for yourself and you build it in your brain. And the artist is the one who helps us tell story, or art is telling story, so that good scientists are artists, as often good artists are scientists of a sort, working on hypotheses. We're not in our ghettos. But of course there's a place for I just think the impulse that got us here in the first place is the impulse that is so human and will see us through.
So I'm going to rely on somebody who's much smarter than I am, and that is the British poet Wilfred Owen, who said, "All a poet can do today is warn. That is why the true poets must be truthful." So our responsibility, I feel like our obligation to everybody, is to tell the truth and to warn. Because what else can we do?
From my perspective, it's to make people smile, whether it's through music or when I get feedback from people on the series that I do, and it means a lot to me to know that my work is appreciated, and that it's just making people feel better, and that's why it needs to continue in whatever way it can.
I think that we need art because art is what ultimately makes us humans. It's what makes us a society, a community, a civilization. And we we need it to survive. And so I think as somebody who is a creator and who can bring at least a little bit of that to people, I think that helps us. It helps us to stay afloat. So it's much more important than I think some people are willing to give it credit for. But it's fundamental to everything.
Yeah.
I think that the role. Oh, Jax, did you go?
No, I have children running around, so I'm just like,
Go ahead.
be quiet.
Go ahead.
Be quiet.
I got to be quiet.
Valerie says hello.
Alex Walting, what about you?
It's interesting. I think that the role of art is to be I think that the role of art is to be everywhere. I mean, we are the escape because we are that show that people are binging right now. We are that space to question because that's what we are doing literally right now. We are that space to aspire because that's what I feel as a classically trained musician. We are a space to celebrate because that's what I feel as a more mainstream or musical theater musician. We are a space to we are a space to reinvent and reimagine when other people don't have the strength to. That's what I feel as a writer. And we're also distinctly as professionals, we are the ones who perform the service of doing it even when we don't freaking feel like it. Because people will turn to art when they feel like it, but we will turn to it because it's our job and because what we need in this time that we've been trained for, in a time to respond to crisis, doesn't matter as much as what the world needs or what the other person on the other side of the camera needs. Or the role of the artist right now is to serve.
Yeah, I like Alex's statement, Alex Abdullayev, also about mourning.
Yes.
You know, all the things. I had a conversation the other day with my husband. Is very literal. He's a journalist. He's a wire service journalist. Even adjectives like very make him break out in hives. So absolute literalism. And, you know, talking about the difference between reality and truth, artists offer us truth because we can imagine all things. We are the portal to imagining all things.
Jax, did you have one? I think you're the only person we've missed so far.
You know, I don't. I think that what everybody said was so beautiful and so apt. And so absolutely, it touches exactly in my heart. We are here to create. We are here to warn. We are here to inspire. We are here to tell a story. So I think I don't have anything to add. Everybody else said exactly it.
All right. Well, I really appreciate the five of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, if nothing else, this time has been such a beautiful time to come back together with all of you, or to come to you. Rick and Lindsay, I never met you before this crisis. This is amazing.
Meet everybody.
Yeah.
It's really nice to meet you all.
I have new friends.
So if anyone who has been watching wants to stay in touch, first of all, thank you. We very much appreciate it. And second of all, just send a message to hustlingcreative.com or to our Facebook if you want to get in touch with any one of us, or to just to tell us what you want and what you need to see next, because we're here for it. So yeah, really appreciate you all. Oh, and also if you want to make this a continuing thing, I am thinking about that. So it's to drink.
Russia. More ideas.
It's Russia.
All right. Cheers, guys.
You guys are lucky I did not have any vodka in the house, because it would have been the same amount consumed and I would have been twice as belligerent.
That's for part two. That's for part two. All right. Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.